AFCON is almost upon us, and I can't wait really. It's actually my favorite international tournament, hands down. There's always a lot going on, absolutely crazy scenes throughout every stage of the game. But the only thing I hate about AFCON is the time of year it happens every single year. We all know the reasons. At the end of the day, the climate in Africa, in most countries, does not suit a tournament played over the summer where the biggest leagues have got their breaks, their summer breaks. So basically, we are forced to hold our tournament in the winter. It's in Morocco this year over Christmas and into the new year. And that means that all the big teams, Cameroon, Nigeria, Ivory Coast, all these big teams, their players are playing for some of the biggest league teams in the world: Premier League, Bundesliga, Spanish League. And what does that mean? It means teams have to release these players. So FIFA have said, they say the players need to join the teams on the 7th of December, which is in a few days' time. But we all watch the weekend football, the week football. Like, I was watching Fulham versus Manchester City. Did you see how Chukwueze played, how Iwobi played? And then you imagine them going without some of their biggest players for all these weeks until early January, missing at least 6-7 games if they get near the finals. And I can see exactly why these teams really hate this tournament, and the fans as well. They're going to hate this tournament because at the end of the day, let's be reasonable. Premier League football is a huge business. Spanish League football is a huge business. International football is about pride. It's about passion. So when it comes to it, you can sort of weigh it up. You don't really, it's a business, and these guys are not going to want to send their players off, but they have to respect the rules of the game. Now, I would never say a lot about sort of like saying CAF are not serious because they're holding it at the wrong time of year. We know why they're holding it at the time of year in winter, which is the biggest sort of time in most calendars in league football. It happened. We had the World Cup in 2022, which was held over the Christmas New Year period, January, December time in Saudi Arabia. Because of the climate, you can't play over the summer. It's too hot. Someone will die. So basically, this happens. FIFA have said that the players, these big teams, they can release their players on the 15th. And teams like Manchester United, who have got like big players in the African nations like Amad Diallo, Mbeumo, they've said they can release their players on the 21st of December, or because Cameroon are not playing till the 24th, they might even say, oh yeah, can we speak to your countries and maybe fly in a day before the tournament? This is a huge, huge problem that some of these teams are going to have to face. Because if you completely say, no, we want our players on the 7th of December, you are diminishing the opportunities, which are already diminishing, I can't lie, for big teams to sign African players, because they know they'll be going to the African Nations Cup. Look at all the noise Liverpool make every time Salah has to go to the African Nations. Not this time, because Salah hasn't been playing very well since the beginning of the season, and they don't think they're going to miss him. They probably will, we don't know, but they're just saying, well, he's probably not our most important player, so he can go. But when you look at Manchester United, they do need Mbeumo. They need Amad Diallo. Look at Fulham. They need Iwobi. Without Iwobi, without Chukwueze, they are cooked. Without Bassi, come on. That is their whole team. That could spell them going into the relegation zone if they do not have a good plan. So I do not really find their anxieties and their resentment off-putting, because at the end of the day, let's be realistic, guys. A tournament right in the middle of the season. And then, of course, you're going to have people saying, oh, but no one complains when it's the Euros. Well, the Euros don't play their tournaments at Christmas and December. They don't, because they have set up their leagues in such a way that they play their tournaments in the summer period every so often. And unless Africa finds a way of doing it in the summer, we are going to struggle. It would definitely benefit us in the long term if we want to have players playing in the big leagues as well, and not just the African players. We do have, another tournament where only local players play, and you can see the standard of football is not as good as the standard of football where you are incorporating the players from these other leagues. So, AFCON have released this statement basically saying, CAF football, CAF African of Nations, Morocco 2025, mandatory release period and inclusion in the men's international match calendar. So it goes on to say, when determining the dates of the 2025 edition of the African Nations AFCON taking place in Morocco, the Confederation of African Football, CAF, in the spirit of solidarity, decided to adjust the normal timing of the tournament from its historical January to February slot in an effort to minimize the conflict with the new scheduling of international club competitions. You have to remember that there are still qualifiers for the World Cup going on. We've got the intercontinental qualifiers. So they've moved it back, but still January, February was still a bad time. It's always at a bad time for other league considerations. So they've moved it over Christmas, but Christmas is even busier in my opinion. Unless you move it to over the summer, you are going to be really struggling. So anyway, against this background, following extensive consultation with CAF and European football clubs, and in order to reduce the impact on various stakeholders and to facilitate planning, and in the case of clubs, squad management, on 29th November 2025, the Bureau of the Council took the following decisions. By exceptional application of the same principle used for the FIFA World Cup 2022, the Bureau decided to reduce by 7 days the mandatory release period for the CAF or AFCON 2025 so that it instead starts on Monday, 15 December 2025. It's really important. I don't know what you guys think. Let me know. But it's really important. We all know they need a period of training together, of communication. I guess there is a way of doing it where, they just have to do almost like a side hustle, joining by Zoom, joining in with the planning over Zoom for a week, while the guys who can get there early, but they just have to make it work. In my opinion, I think it will reduce the quality of the product because they have reduced the amount of time these guys can plan for certain countries. Certain countries like Zambia, where our international impact is not as big, maybe not. But think about it. If the clubs in Europe are going to be holding their players back for another week, the countries in Africa, because you're playing in South Africa, you're playing in DRC, you're playing, in Egypt, they might have similar considerations and think we don't have to release their players and they're within their rights to do it, because if the European clubs can do it, why can't we do it? And you know how we are Africans, we want to be seen as if we are on the same level. We want to sort of always compete like that. So they go on to say, however, it's also determined that member associations participating in the CAF AFCON 2025 and clubs releasing players who would be playing in continental competitions during the release period to be encouraged to hold bilateral discussions in good faith to find appropriate individual solutions, which I agree with somehow. Some clubs will take advantage. They'll take the mickey, because let's be honest, some of these managers who are not exposed, who hate culture, are going to think the AFCON is a nothing tournament. But for us Africans, it's our be-all and end-all. I would rather watch AFCON any day than watch the Premier League, for example, which I do. If there's an Arsenal game going on and Zambia is playing, I'm watching the AFCON game. That's just it, I'll catch up with the Arsenal highlights later. So in cases where there continues to be a dispute over the release of players subsequent to such bilateral discussions, FIFA will in mediating between both parties, apply guidelines that take into account the circumstances of each case, including factors related to the timing of matches of affected competitions, the stage of these competitions, the historical and planned involvement of players in the competitions in questions, as well as any other pertinent factors. I guess that is exactly what they can do. But for me, there's a bigger issue, another issue, not even bigger, it's just another issue, which I think every 2 years when we're doing AFCON, there's a discussion. If you see some of the biggest clubs in the world, let's start with Arsenal because it's obviously the biggest club in the world. Name me one African player. Nobody. They don't even sign any. I think the last time we had an African player was Alex Song, Eboué, Javinho. Oh yeah, we had Obama Young, but that was it. Since Arteta's come, he doesn't even look. Well, we had Thomas Partey last season, to be fair. So we have, but it's one. So they are not looking that way because it messes up their seasons. Let's look at Manchester City. I don't think Manchester City have one African player. Chelsea, do they have an African player? They've got black players with African ancestry, but do they play for African nations? No. So it's only when you go sort of lower because the prices are obviously a little lower, where you get more and more players and they'll be reconsidering their options if they get affected really badly. That is a discussion for another day, I guess. I really respect that. But if you're in the UK, like I am, basically, if you're in the UK, you can watch Channel 4 have agreed a deal and they're showing every single African nations game on their platform. So I better go and pay for my TV license because I'm going to be watching it on that. It makes my life so much easier than finding streams and whatever. So basically, yeah, it's absolutely amazing. I cannot wait. It's going to be good. I don't know how the coverage is going to be. All I want to know is that I can access the games and you can access them anywhere. Very convenient. So I am happy that is possible. So yeah, we've got access to the African Nations games very easily now. But yeah, let me know what you think. Do you find it disrespectful that some of these big clubs do not want to release the players on time to go to the African Nations? Or do you understand where they're coming from? Because it's really, I am sympathetic and I think it really does cost us. And if it does, what do you think the solution is? Should CAF at some point start thinking a lot more as business-minded, start thinking about the value it creates in us trying to go to a format where we can somehow play in the summer somewhere? Like already Morocco seem to be hosting every tournament at the moment. Can we find a country where it's a bit cooler in the summer and do our next couple of tournaments there or something so that we can enjoy African football without the distraction of qualification, World Cup qualification, the distraction of Champions League, the distraction of Premier League, Spanish League. Champions League is back, I think, on the 20th of January. So at least that is out of the way, thank goodness. But yeah, I'm really sympathetic, I can't lie. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. I'm still going to be focusing. So please do not forget to put your notifications on because I'm going to be doing a lot of AFCON content. I cannot wait. Thank you very much, you guys. I am off to watch the Arsenal versus Brentford game. So I'll be talking to you very soon. Bye-bye.